Hi, and welcome to this video series, How to Solve Enterprise AI, with me, Errol Kohlmeister, Executive AI and Data Advisor, and
Me, Lukas Cernkovich-Fries, CEO and founder of Peltarion.
welcome back to episode 2. Today we'll be talking about strategic direction for AI. And the strategic direction for AI is, of course, the why, the what, the how, and the who. So, strategy. Luca, why is strategy important when you work with AI?
Strategy is always important. You have to know where you're going, and AI is no exception. So you can, but it's not good to just do random use cases here and there, because it doesn't lead to anything more fundamental to something larger. You have to have an idea of what is it actually that you want to do, who is it for, and it has to be actionable. So there's a risk of going really all strategic and just thinking about the sort of theoretical 10 years in advance and so on, and nothing happens. So I think it's also yes, strategy is important, but it's also what kind of strategy and sort of how you execute it. What do you say?
So I like to break it down like this. You, of course, need to oblige to the company strategy. You are not successful with your AI use case unless it actually fulfills the targets of the company overall. Even if you're getting a ROI of 1 million or 1 billion, if you're going in the wrong direction, you're going the wrong way. But you can't really do everything and include everything in your strategy, because then you're going to spend 2 years, just as you said, on just trying to get the strategy right. You need to know where you're going, because otherwise any way will take you there. And you need to start executing. So just like technology, you need to start executing and delivering on these targets. Strategy is not just about saying where you're going. It's also who is going to do it. What are you going to do? The road mapping work. And then how are you going to execute on those things? And I think one of the things I like to point out is that if you are successful with AI, which is easy if you're doing it right, then you're going to have so much more stakeholders. Success has 1,000 fathers and failures has none. And the problem is when you're starting to become successful, all of a sudden people are going to want you to deliver more. And you don't want to be taken by surprise when that happens. So what should you do then?
Handling 10 use cases versus handling 100 use cases versus handling 1,000 use cases is very different situations. And ultimately, what you need is a platform to basically handle it. Otherwise, you'll end up with no control of where you have things, what they're doing, who has access to what, and so on. And it's difficult to align a strategy. You'll end up with, 100 different use cases distributed across your organization, not knowing how it affects it.
Definitely. And I think when it comes to strategy, it's about formulating these key cornerstones in how you're going to execute. I mean, in the beginning, the strategy doesn't need to be as well formulated. You might have a roadmap of 10 use cases that you want to try out, and who is going to do it? Is it external consultants? Are we going to work with a partner, or are we going to do it ourselves? But as soon as you start kind of getting 10 use cases, that's the level I've seen before, you're up to 100 people almost. Especially if you're successful, you might be up to 150. And then you need to shift the thinking in your strategy to start talking more about what are the capabilities that I want to build? What's the platform, as you say? What's the reusable components? And all of these things, you need to start thinking about them. You need to start packaging them. And as you said, we're building up this in the organization. So the strategic approach and the formulation that you need to do in your enterprise is around how we're going to get there and what is going to happen afterwards.
And I think also, especially when starting early off, it's easy to confuse the what and the how, but try to make the what business oriented, so that your goal isn't our strategy. Strategy isn't we're going to build a data lake. That's not a strategy. That's a part of a how you potentially how you get there. So we've seen in many cases companies that get stuck in these endless infrastructural projects because essentially they asked their data scientists, so we want AI, what do we do? And then say, we're going to need data. So we'll start up by centralizing all of our data, building this massive data lake and so on. And that took 5 years, and then it's outdated and they have to restart it and so on. So make sure that the strategy is concrete and that it's actually aligned with your overall business strategy. It isn't, AI isn't a thing in itself. It only makes sense in your business.
Yeah. And I think that what we can agree upon here is that the only constant that we're working with is change. So your strategy should be about how do we make this adaptation into something that we don't build ourselves into, and how do we speed up development. And I like the part there around asking the data scientist what do you want and then building for them. The data scientists are not your customers. It is your internal business users. It's the end consumers of the output that's your customers. So make sure you build for value and then organize for structure. And structure comes later on. So strategy needs to handle all of these things. And remember, it's better to think about these things before you get started, but not for too long, rather than building yourself into a corner and you can't get yourself out of there. So strategy is about handling all of these topics. It's about gathering the decision makers, your customers, and agreeing on how you should execute on these things. Start small, think big, scale fast.
Yeah, I think one of the things that's interesting that we encounter quite a lot, and especially a couple of years ago when companies got started, is that they thought that they understood the need of AI at the board level and the company leadership level. And they got a designated AI person in the leadership team. And then they got the data science department. And they started building use cases, which was lovely, except they completely ignored the business part of the company. So it sort of lived in a self-reinforcing bubble of proof of concepts and cool show-off demos of how cool the technology is that had no impact on the business. So it's very important to know who is your customer.
Yeah. Who is your customer is fundamental. And I think what we want to do is minimize the technology discussion. Should I do this or that? Should I build X or Y? We want to make those things as easy as possible for the people that are developing these type of things. And then we want to enable the business to talk about business value. I have this problem. Oh yeah, we can solve that. I have this problem. Oh yeah, we can solve that as well. How do you prioritize those initiatives? And how do you reduce time to value? So I think when it comes to strategy, that's an important factor. TTV, time to value, trademarked. And I really want people to think about that because it is an extreme factor. When somebody says, I need 3 years to build a perfect data lake, or I want to build a data mesh that very few people in the world have built, is that the way forward? Should the technology be decided upon what's best practice in the market overall, or should it be targeting what is best for you as an enterprise? These questions can be challenged, and it should not be driven by the technology department alone. It should be a dialogue. When can I see the value? Why can't I have incremental value? I need to deliver today. So TTV, time to value, is an important factor to include in your strategy.
All right, thanks, Errol. And yeah, we'll see you next week.